Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Welcome to From Hair to There, a podcast about alopecia, where we bridge the gap between patients, healthcare professionals, and you, our listeners. We bring you diverse alopecia areata stories from around the globe, highlighting the challenges and successes of living with alopecia areata and reminding you that you are never alone in this journey. Hair loss isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and even spiritual, and we're here to discuss it all. I'm Naomi Creek, National Coordinator at Global Healthy Living Foundation Australia, and with me is my fellow co-host, Jo Birch. Jo is a registered psychologist who also lives with alopecia areata.
Thank you, Naomi. It's been quite a journey for me since I was diagnosed with alopecia areata, and I am here to share it all. I believe that every person with alopecia areata has a unique story, and by sharing ours, we can inspire, motivate, and uplift each other. Whether you're diagnosed with alopecia areata, a caregiver, a medical professional, or someone just wanting to learn, then this podcast is for you.
So tune in and let's embark on this journey from hair to there. In today's episode, we're chatting with Katie Hale, who is a communications professional and former journalist, and she was diagnosed with alopecia 8 years ago as a 23-year-old. Katie is a proud advocate for people with alopecia and encourages people to embrace and accept the condition so that they can live their life to the fullest. Thanks so much for joining us today, Katie.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
You have an inspiring story. Can we go back 8 years to when you were first diagnosed? Tell us about that time and some of the mental hurdles you went through.
Yeah, sure. So I was working in a pretty stressful job at that period, and I found this little tiny spot on the back of my head, and I didn't really know what it was. I thought I had maybe burnt my scalp while I was straightening my hair or just something like that, but it was just a small, shiny, smooth little spot. And I kind of just kept touching it for, a few months, and it didn't really change. I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. My hair's not growing back, but it's not getting worse. And then it felt like it started to get a little bit bigger. It definitely did start to increase in size, and all of a sudden I had a few other spots popping up. And then within about the space of a week, I lost half the hair on my head, and things just progressed rapidly from there. Basically, over the 6-month period, lost all hair across my body, and that's never come back. The rapidness for me was probably the biggest thing. There wasn't anything that I could do to kind of stop it or to at least halt or slow that progress. And so the mental hurdles that came up with that were really, really challenging. It was completely out of my control. I had no idea what was happening, and it was really stressful. My whole appearance changed within, the space of a week, and I had to shave my head, and, I had long, blonde, beautiful curly hair. So it was a real change to how I saw myself and how other people saw me. And then just the not knowing if it would come back, not knowing what the condition was, not knowing anyone with it. It was this whole new thing. And that in itself brings with it a lot of challenges mentally, trying to adjust to that and trying to just hope that, there might be something that could happen that, would bring your hair back. It was something I didn't know existed before it happened.
What a really traumatic time you must have gone through. How did you even explain it to those around you, your loved ones and work colleagues, etc.?
That was a really hard one because there were only a few people that were really close to me that knew what was going on when I had the patches. Like I had a few work friends that, I was obviously really stressed out. And so a couple of them knew what was going on. I didn't tell my family really until I was about to shave my head. Like I think I told my mum that, some stuff was going on. And then, I told my dad pretty much the day that I had to shave my head. I was like, just a heads up that, my hair's been falling out. I don't know what's going on. So I'm about to shave my head. And then that was almost one of the most freeing things for me because I basically shaved the sides short and had a little bit long on top. And it meant that I put a photo up on Facebook and I had a bit of an essay to go with it. And it was basically saying, some people know, but most don't. This is what's been going on. My hair's been falling out. I don't really know anything about, but this is me taking charge and me taking control of what's been going on. And it's just a little bit more obvious now. And so it wasn't a shock for people. Like it was a shock, but it wasn't so much of a shock having the explanation to go with it instead of just seeing a photo and suddenly going, oh, well, why has Katie no longer got any hair? The work one was really hard. I was working in TV and there aren't many people, if any, that look like me on TV. And so that one, as a producer, that one was really scary because it meant for me it felt like I'd lost a lot of my career options. I had just finished uni, I was just starting out, and suddenly all the things that I was working towards were potentially gone. And so that it felt like it was really career limiting. And also working in a television station, it is so much about looks. Like, as much as it isn't, it also is. And so walking into there the next day and suddenly looking completely different, I felt like I was about to be sick. Like, it was so stressful and anxiety inducing, and people could not have been more lovely and supportive. It was so heartwarming, but still, yeah, very, very stressful.
Yeah, it sounds like it would have been pretty traumatic for you to go through that. It's sad that our society is all about looks, but I congratulate you for just going in there with your shiny head and saying, this is me. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Katie, you mentioned, I guess, quite a few of those mental and lifestyle hurdles when you were speaking then. When your alopecia progressed so rapidly, what sort of coping mechanisms did you use to get you through that time?
To be honest, not many. It was all about survival at that point. I was just trying to keep afloat, and there wasn't anything that I particularly did or was consciously doing. I knew I had to kind of de-stress and get out of my head a little bit. And so I tried doing yoga for a little bit just as a, calming down and being active a little bit. To be honest, that wasn't super helpful for me at the time. I found sitting in that silence something that was actually quite triggering for me because my brain was so overstimulated that it's something that has helped over time. But in that immediate point, it was just getting up and trying to keep routine and trying to keep working and doing all of those things. I stayed connected with all my friends and family quite often and relied on their support quite a lot to keep me propped up. But at that time, like at 23, I didn't really know what to do or where to go or how to handle it. I'd never really gone through anything life-changing like that before. And so that was very, very new. If it was to happen today again, it would be a completely different scenario. Like, I've got so many different things and tools in my little tool belt that would help me. But at 23, I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, look, that leads me really nicely into my next question, which is, how would you cope today?
For me, exercise is huge. That's the thing for me. It's that, again, routine and stability, but exercise is like, I train really hard. It's the thing that keeps me sane. And it's just a bit of an outlet. Like, I focus on eating really well, working with a therapist, like a psychologist, like that's something that is so, so critical because it just helps you process what is going on, and having someone there to, bounce your thoughts and ideas off and understand why you're feeling the way you are or why you've got certain perceptions of yourself in your head, or what, like for me, I'm very self-conscious still in certain situations, and I really feel that. And I really notice the eyes on me, especially when I'm in a situation where I don't really know many people. Like, I'm very hyper aware of that. And so working with a therapist to, process what's going on there and why I'm thinking the way I am, and also just accepting exactly who I am. Like, this isn't going to change for me. This is pretty much me for life, I suspect. So, I'm better off dealing with that now and processing it than than trying to bury it and hide it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that acceptance is probably the biggest thing I would talk about in my sessions when I'm working with people who have alopecia. It's a really hard one to do, as you touched on, but I often say, this is not your fault. You didn't cause this, and trying to find, that inner kind of peace or, okayness, for lack of a better word, around, okay, this is my life, and how does my life actually change? Well, it doesn't really. I can still, as you said, go and exercise and eat and see my friends and see my family, and whether you have hair or not, those things are still the same. But I think working towards that point, as you said, can take a lot of time and a lot of professional support as well.
That's it. It's like, and some of those things for me, because I do have universalis, like head to toe, some of those things do change a little bit. Like, exercise is a little bit harder because I've got no eyebrows or eyelashes to stop the sweat going in, or I've got, like all of those kind of little things you take for granted that you don't know until that hair's gone and you're like, oh, it actually serves a function, like, so those little things. But it doesn't stop you. Like, it doesn't have to stop you from doing it. It's just slightly different.
Katie, despite all your challenges you've just discussed, you've really embraced living with alopecia and are an outspoken advocate for others living with the condition. What made you want to become such a positive voice for others?
For me, one of the hardest things when it all happened was I had never seen anyone that looked like me. I suddenly went from looking and fitting into everyone to being completely bald. I had no eyebrows and eyelashes, so that really makes you stand out. And people did stare. People still stare at me today when I'm walking down the street, or like people have made comments before. And I look at that and I go, there are people that aren't dealing with this as well as I am. And if that happens to them, it's going to set them back so much further. And so for me, it comes back to acceptance. If they get it out of their system with me and I can handle it, then it will make it easier for that next person that's walking down the street. Maybe that person won't stare at them, or maybe that person will, have gone, okay, I've seen someone that looks like that now. So for me, it's trying to make it more common for other people, so that for other people with alopecia, it's not a bigger thing. Like, people have seen more and more people. It's that whole you can't be what you can't see kind of thing. And I think so many people with this condition cover up or hide it. And if we had more of us out there looking and just wearing it proudly and just being themselves, then it wouldn't be such a big thing for the kids that are coming up that are kind of going, oh, do I have to wear a wig? Do I have to do this? It's just about making it easier for the next generation following.
So it's really just normalising, or trying to normalise the condition so there aren't those stares and uncomfortable situations for you and others living with it.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see more of us out there so that it's a bit more, I remember being on an escalator at a shopping centre, and I heard this little boy, and he was going the opposite direction. And he's like, Mum, look at that lady. And as I was looking over, he's like, she looks like you. And it was actually someone in the community, and we'd never met before, but it was his mum. And we were both just like clocked eyes as we were going up and down the escalators. But that was really cool. He was so excited that someone looked like his mum. And that's exactly what it is. It's like you want to see more people, and that excitement, and it's that thrill of going, oh, like there are more people out there like me. I'm not so isolated in this situation as I think I might be.
Fantastic. And so do you think going bald and showing your raw self, is that part of being empowered to speak out? Does that help you?
Yeah, definitely. When I was diagnosed, a lot of the thing that helped me process what was going on was writing about it. And I wrote a few media articles and speaking about it. And it is empowering because you understand why someone is the way they are, like when they share their story. And so I do feel very empowered by being able to do that. And, I hope that it makes a difference. I feel like it does, or it has before. I think it's really important that people, because there are so many common threads among each of us that have got this condition, just being able to hear that. And like you said before, it normalizes it. It makes you feel less alone, because that shared experience is a really strong one.
Yeah. And have you tried wigs, or have you made a conscious decision not to wear a wig for that reason, the awareness?
Look, to be honest, at the start, wigs terrified me, absolutely terrified me. And because I felt like that wasn't being true to myself, I felt like I was hiding a part of me. And I felt more self-conscious being in a wig, or even just the thought of putting a wig on. I would feel more self-conscious about that than just looking the way I do. So I do have a couple of wigs, and most of them are just for fun. Like I've got, like a kind of pinky purpley coloured one. I've got a blonde one. And sometimes it's just nice just to blend in and not stand out, or, it's a bit of fun, like going out, dressing up and you want to look differently, because, a big part for women about when they get dressed up for an event or going out is getting your hair done. And so for me, I felt like a part of that was missing. I felt a bit naked, or I felt a bit like I just wasn't dressed up as much as I'd like to be. And so it's those situations where I might pop one on. To be honest, usually by halfway through the night I get sick of it and whip it off anyway, and so I'm carrying around a piece of hair. But I think they give a lot of people a lot of options, and I think there are some amazing wigs out there. I haven't worn mine pretty much since pre-pandemic, just because I just got out of the rhythm of it. I usually only wear it in winter for a bit of fun, or if I don't feel like wearing a beanie and it's just a little bit warmer. But yeah, I think there are some great options, and it's, each to their own, and whatever makes you feel comfortable. You could have a different hair color every single day of the week or year if you wanted to. It's a great option.
I like how you talk about that, Katie. I feel like Naomi and I can really, sense kind of your fun and your enjoyment when you're talking about wigs, and how you've been able to embrace your alopecia and go, okay, if I want to wear a wig, I can, but I can sort of make it an enjoyable, experience. Katie, would you mind telling us a little bit more around what lessons you have learned from others living with alopecia and from being involved in raising awareness?
I don't know where to begin with that one. There are so many things that I've learned. I think for me, one of the most memorable ones was at the Foundation's Kids Camp, to see all different kids just coming together and having that shared connection. Like, it's so empowering and so heartwarming just to see them so comfortable. Like, and it was, you saw these kids coming out of their shell more and more as the weekend went on. That for me was such a rewarding experience. It really cemented just how great the foundation is and how valuable their work is. And just, it changes lives. Those little things, like their core memories for those kids where they suddenly see people that look like them. They probably go to school and never see kids that look like them. And then suddenly they're surrounded by kids that all look like them. I don't know how to phrase it. That was a really, really valuable experience. In terms of the lessons, I think it's also accepting that every single person is at a different part of their journey, and acceptance with the condition. People have had some really bad experiences, like particularly the women in the 10 or 20 years older than what I am, and some of the experiences that they've had. It made me really appreciate how well I kind of had it when it did happen. Like, I've heard some really awful stories about different medication trials, how people have been treated, how, they're still too scared to ever leave the house without a wig on, or to have people like their closest loved ones see them without a wig. And just meeting people where they're at, everyone's had a really different journey. So for me, that's been a really big lesson in not necessarily being quick to judge, but just really taking that time to sit there and hear people out and hear how they've handled it and how they've been shaped by their experiences. And you can see why people choose to hide it. For me, it was never even a thought to hide it, but for them, it's the complete opposite. And to be able to understand those different backgrounds and different reasons, that's been a really big lesson.
Naomi, I actually met Katie at the kids camp she's referring to. And personally, I would say it was the start of my alopecia journey. And as Katie said, everyone's alopecia areata is very different. My hair was growing back at that point in time as I had started medication. But Katie was reflecting on the experiences of the children. I would actually reflect on my experience in meeting Katie. I felt like that was really, really powerful for me to see someone in my mind so confident and so open and vulnerable, because at that point I was like, don't tell anyone. I hadn't even spoken about it, where I came to this camp as a volunteer and I think took away just as much as the kids did. So that was really special for me.
That's wonderful. I think I can relate a little bit just briefly with my own life with rheumatoid arthritis and wanting to hide that as a child, growing up with it. And when I got into adulthood, I did find a support group, and suddenly I wasn't alone, and I actually started wanting to talk about it and help others and listen and learn from others. So I think you're definitely right that everyone's at a different part of their journey, but we can always learn from someone in those situations.
That's the thing. I think as well, it's the feedback that you get. I remember the first time just after I was diagnosed, I went to a bit of a catch up when I was still living in Sydney. And it was the first one that I'd been to with people that also had the condition. And one of my little cousins who was in primary school, there was a boy at their school who also had alopecia. And so they knew about the condition, and he was head to toe like I am. And I remember it was a picnic, and I couldn't find where I was going. I just was looking for people that looked like me, and I wandered around for about 10-15 minutes, and then I finally figured out the group. And it was because everyone had wigs and caps on and hats and scarves and everything. And so I kind of went into that going, I thought I'd see people that looked like me, and I didn't. And I remember being a bit frazzled by that. But this little boy was there with his mum as well, and I had feedback come through my auntie that he was so excited to see someone that looked like him that was there, because he had the same feeling. No one there looked like him until I showed up. And that was one of those little moments that made me go, okay, I'm on the right path here. That's exactly why I want to do it, because you want to see people that look like you, and being able to have that little shared experience, it was really lovely.
What a wonderful story, Katie. Is there anything else, any things you'd love to share with the listeners that we may not have touched on today?
I think it's just having that confidence to be comfortable in what you're doing, in the sense that, like, if you, wearing wigs and you're wanting to kind of do that less, or, go bald, or one of those little things, you don't have to jump headfirst into it. Like, you can dip your toes in the water and you go at the speed that you're comfortable with. Like, don't feel like you have to go one or the other all the way. Like, there are so many different little things that you can do and build that confidence and just take those baby steps, because if you're not comfortable in what you're doing, it's going to make that journey a lot harder. Or, like, you don't have to, like I said, dive headfirst into it. It's just doing things at your own pace and testing things. And some days you will feel a bit uncomfortable, or you may not love what you're doing, or you may feel extra self-conscious, but it's part of the journey, and we've all been through it at different phases. Even though you might come across as really confident, or you still have those days as well. And I think that's really important to accept, that it's not all smooth sailing every day, and it doesn't have to be. You can have those, ups and downs, but still be making progress on that path to acceptance, whatever that looks like for you.
Yep, I totally understand, Katie. So on that point, I wanted to ask you one last question. What is your message of hope for others starting on their journey with alopecia?
It won't be as scary and awful as what those first few days are. It won't stop you from doing what you're doing unless you let it stop you. So push yourself out of that comfort zone a little bit. Speak to others, find that support around you, because the people that are around you are what's going to help you get through that. And be really open and honest. And if you're having a terrible day, then say that, because there's no point hiding that and hiding away with it. If you get it out there and you talk about it, and you even, going to see a therapist, work with people, because it will get better. It always does. Like what Jo was saying, you're meeting people at different parts of their journey. So you'll get more confident in what you're doing, and you'll become more comfortable in your own skin, even though it may not seem like it in those first couple of days or couple of weeks, and you're unsure of where things are at. Get out there, find some information, arm yourself with all those resources that are out there through the foundation. It will get better.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us today, and we wish you well and keep empowering all those living with alopecia. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope the stories, insights, and voices we've shared have touched you, educated you, and made your journey a little brighter.
Living with alopecia areata is more than just about hair. It's about resilience, identity, and community. And together, we're building that community one story at a time.
This podcast was made possible with support from Pfizer Australia.
If our words resonated with you, please take a moment to rate us, leave a glowing review, and share this podcast with your friends, family, and networks. Every share amplifies our voice and helps someone out there feel understood. If you have any questions, comments, episode topics, you can email us at podcasts@ghlf.org.
Until next time, remember, whether you're on the path of acceptance, seeking treatments, or anywhere in between, we're with you, from hair to there.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.